When the word lockdown echoes through the hall, you think you're safe. You think the locked doors will keep the danger out. But what if the danger is already inside? Imagine sitting in a dark classroom, the hum of fluorescent lights replaced by silence. Your friend whispers that someone's walking the halls a man who doesn't belong there. His shadow slides across the wall, closer, closer, until you can hear him breathing through the bathroom door. Or picture a cop sweeping through a silent middle school, his flashlight trembling as he follows the sound of metal scraping against lockers, only to find a boy locked inside, bleeding, whispering, "He's still here." And then there's you, alone in a hotel room. The alarm blares, lights flash, and a calm voice on the phone says, "Don't panic, just walk out. There's someone in your room." This is not fiction. These are true lockdown horror stories, real fear, real survivors, and evil that walked among them. Welcome to Midnight Hauntings. Subscribe if you dare to face the darkness that hides behind locked doors. The bell schedule at my school ran like a metronome, 9 periods clicking from morning to late afternoon, and the 5th beat was always lunch. My 6th period was astronomy, the class everyone wanted because it lived in the basement where the air conditioning worked, even in September, and the quizzes were the kind of questions you could answer while doodling constellations on the margins. It used to be a janitor's domain, a concrete artery with pipes humming and a faint mineral smell baked into the cinder blocks. They renovated it into 2 classrooms and a stubby hallway with a single bathroom and no intercom, a place we jokingly called the chamber, as if it were a dungeon from a game we should not have been playing during school. The absence of the loudspeaker meant we did not hear announcements unless a teacher remembered to tell us later, which we treated as a perk. The chamber was off the grid. That day we had a quiz on the moons of Jupiter and the names slid onto the paper like they had been waiting for me. I was one of the first to finish. I texted my friend in the other basement class, the kind of text that made boredom feel like mischief. "Meet me in the bathroom." He sent back a quick okay. We drifted into the hallway that always felt a few degrees colder than the rest of the building, our sneakers making rubbery sighs on the tile, and slipped into the bathroom where the lights hummed, and the mirror was a rectangle of tired silver. My friend, JJ, came in moments later, grinning with the reflex of someone who is happy to be anywhere but his desk. We joked quietly, just stupid stuff, the way laughter turns light in empty spaces. Then JJ looked at his phone and the grin slipped. "Someone says we are on lockdown," he whispered. It floated into the air like a dare. The chamber had no intercom, no bell, no official voice to tell us what to do, and we both felt the same flash of opportunity. If no one had seen us leave, no one would know where we were. We could move like ghosts. We told ourselves we would peek upstairs, just to see. It would be the kind of story you tell later at lunch, how the halls were deserted and the quiet made you brave. We pushed open the basement door to the main floor, and the school we knew had been extinguished. The hall lights were off, which almost never happened, not even during drills. There was a pale glow pooling from the front lobby doors, and everything else drowned in a soft black. A lockdown is supposed to be a wall against danger, but the dark always feels like it lets danger in. JJ stepped out, cautious, angling his head down the corridor. "Who is that?" he breathed. I followed his stare, and a shape slid out from a deeper patch of night. At first, he could have been a teacher, anyone, but as he moved, the details assembled wrong. The clothes were layered, mismatched, stained. The gait was loose, like his joints did not match the rhythm of the floor. He did not look like staff. He did not look like a parent. He looked like someone who had been living outside the edges of order and had found a crack to step through. We backed up, not running yet, letting the old metal door swallow our bodies back into the basement. The chamber felt suddenly honest about what it had been before renovations. We went straight for the bathroom and killed the light, the darkness, a new kind of liquid, thicker than upstairs. We squeezed into the corner stall, knees on cold tile, forearms against the partition. There was no fan on, no heater, just the radiators of our lungs. An occasional drip from a stubborn faucet made a slow clock. Even the echo swallowed itself. The door to the bathroom opened and light sprayed across the floor in a bright wedge before the door clicked shut and night crushed the room again. Whoever had entered did not clear their throat, did not announce themselves, did not move quickly. We heard the steps come our way, not heavy but insolent, slow enough to be certain. The person stopped right on the other side of our thin metal partition and started breathing like he had sprinted a distance to get here, and then decided to stand still and listen to us breathe back. The stillness hurt. My knees ached and time dilated. JJ leaned to my ear and tried to whisper that we should crawl under the dividers and slip out the other end. In a room full of silence, a whisper is not small. It is a stone dropped in a well. The breath on the other side tightened. The stall door flexed as a hand pressed against it. The pressure slid to a shove. The lock rattled. A second shove landed like a shoulder. "Go," I hissed, and we did not think anymore. We flattened, palms on cold tile that prickled our skin, and wriggled under the partition into the next door. The bottom edge of the divider scraped my back. We kept moving, stall to stall, a sideways crawl through a maze meant for privacy, not tile. Escape, while the first door began to groan under repeated hits. The banging rose, the kind of sound the room was never supposed to hold. We burst out of the last stall and reached for the bathroom door. Light hit the tile, blind and sudden, and in that harsh slab of brightness, I saw him in the corner, as if he had peeled away from the wall itself. He looked wrong in every way, and his eyes were not curious. They were hungry. We went for JJ's classroom, hands and shoulders against the hallway, ignoring the sting on my knees where the tile had burned the skin. We pounded on the classroom door. Our teacher opened it in one motion, pulled us inside, turned the lock with a twist that sounded too small for what it was supposed to do. He asked in a voice that was more breath than sound what happened, and JJ spilled it out. The teacher nodded, gaze cutting toward the narrow window. "I think I saw a gun in his pocket," he said, and even though I had not seen it, the sentence settled in my stomach like ice. When the first bang landed on our door, a couple of girls cried out, hands clamped over their mouths as if they could pack the sound back in. The handle jiggled hard. The man leaned into the glass rectangle to look at us, his face warped by the tiny wire mesh inside the window, and none of us moved, not even to blink. After a handful of violent rattles, he turned and walked down the hallway toward the stairwell, the darkness taking him back. The rest of the lockdown was an hour of suspended breath. The teacher kept his voice low and his questions simple, and every time we answered, he shook his head like he was trying to loosen the picture. At some point, a call came to the classroom phone, a single sentence that turned into instructions. We stood in a long single file, the scrape of chair legs loud enough to feel disrespectful, and crept up the stairs to the ground floor.
"There's someone in your room."
The lobby doors framed daylight as if it could disinfect us. Outside, the normal world staged itself. Again, cruisers, blue uniforms, radios, a line of kids who looked smaller than they did that morning. We told a cop what we saw. JJ added the part about the gun, and the cop's face changed without changing. He patted my back and told us to head home. There were no reporters. There were no cameras pointed at us, only the ones they installed after, everywhere, little digital eyes that could have seen him moving through our school if they had existed that day. The chamber stayed the chamber, but something in it shifted forever. You tell yourself that locks and drills and the word lockdown form a shell, a clean geometry of safety. What I learned in that basement was simpler and truer. Sometimes the shell is already cracked and you just have to keep very quiet, move very carefully, and trust that your body will recognize danger before your brain does. We never learned his name. We never learned if the police ever found him.
How can I help you?
The not knowing can feel like a presence of its own, the last person in the room after the light has been switched off. A grey sky pressed low over the middle school that afternoon, the kind of weather that feels heavy with warning. I had been on the force almost 15 years and thought I had seen every kind of chaos. But when dispatch called in a lockdown with a suspicious individual entering through the rear door by the locker rooms, something in the way the operator's voice caught made the hairs on my neck rise. The school was only a few miles from my patrol route. I flicked on the siren and rolled through puddles that mirrored the flashing lights, my windshield wipers struggling to keep up with the rain. When I pulled into the back parking lot, the white van was the first thing I saw, parked crooked near the loading dock, its body spattered with mud and the engine ticking as if it had just been turned off. Every door was locked, windows fogged from the inside. It smelled faintly of oil and something sour, a smell that lingers in your throat. I stepped out, one hand on my radio, the other on my flashlight, and the wind pressed against my uniform. The back door to the gym hallway was propped slightly open. I called into dispatch to confirm backup, heard the crackle of assurance, then nudged the door with my shoulder and slipped inside. The power had been cut as part of the lockdown, so the building was an anatomy of shadows. The beam from my flashlight drew long bones across the tiled floor, lockers lined up like silent witnesses. My boots made careful, deliberate sounds. The air inside smelled of bleach and dust, but underneath there was something faintly human, the residue of sweat and breath. The further I went, the more I felt the school silence folding around me. In the lobby ahead, a woman from the front office appeared from behind the reception desk. She moved with the exaggerated caution of someone who does not want to startle a predator. Her eyes found mine and she mouthed the words, "Boys' locker room," then gestured toward the hallway I had just come from. Her voice came out as a tremor. "He might be armed." I nodded once and went back down the hallway. Every step felt like a decision I would have to defend later. The locker room door was metal, dented from years of slammed fists and kicks. I opened it slowly, keeping my flashlight tied to my body. The beam carved through the dark and illuminated rows of grey lockers, benches scattered with sneakers and gym shorts left in a hurry. There were no windows, only a soft hiss from the air vent above, a white noise that made the silence thicker. Then came a sound, a tiny metallic tick, like a fingernail against steel. Another. It shifted with my position, staying just out of reach of the light. I wanted to call out, announce myself, but my throat refused. Instead, I moved, one careful step at a time, sweeping the light across the rows. The ticking turned into a dull thud, followed by the squeal of a hinge. The room's smell changed to a waft of sweat, metal, something damp. When a locker door slammed somewhere beyond the partition, the crack of it went straight through my chest. My instincts caught up before my mind did. "Police!" The word ripped out of me, louder than I intended, bouncing off the tile walls. For a breath, there was only the hum of the vent, then a muffled cry. It was a boy's voice, young, choked by panic. "Help, please!" The sound came from the far side of the room, from inside a row of lockers, too tall for middle schoolers. I ran toward it, flashlight slicing through the darkness, gun drawn now. The locker rattled violently. "He's gone," the boy gasped from inside. "He locked me in." The edges of my stomach twisted. I holstered my gun, gripped the handle of the locker, and tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge. A heavy-duty lock had been looped through. "Hang tight," I told him, forcing calm into my voice. "You're safe now." It was a lie I needed him to believe. I spoke into my radio, requested immediate backup, told dispatch to bring bolt cutters and alert the front office. When I stepped back into the hallway to orient myself, the outside door was visible through a glass panel. A faint rectangle of light showed the spot where the van had been, empty now. The engine sound had faded into the storm. My gut sank as I realized what I had missed. The license plate, the simplest piece of evidence, already gone. I barked into the radio to issue an alert: white van, no plates, male suspect, possibly armed. The reply came muffled by static and thunder. I ran back to the locker room. The principal and a janitor were waiting with a set of master keys that jingled like nervous teeth. It took 3 tries before we found the right one. The door creaked open and the boy spilled out, small, shivering, blood trailing down his arm. A shallow slice traced the line of his triceps, fresh and angry. He looked about 12, his eyes huge in the flashlight beam. "He had a knife," he said. "He told me to walk outside. He said he'd take me home." I knelt down, my hand hovering near his shoulder, but not touching. The wound was superficial, but it had already soaked his sleeve. "He's gone," I told him. The words sounded brittle. The janitor pressed a towel into the boy's arm and led him toward the office while I stood among the lockers, breathing in the metallic air. The rain outside had grown heavier, echoing through the roof, and for a moment, every drop sounded like another footstep. Later, after the school emptied and the lights came back on, we found the path the man had taken. A door by the gym had been forced open with a crowbar. The marks on the frame were fresh, the paint splintered. He had moved through the locker rooms, tried the gym storage, and cornered the first student he found alone. The boy must have screamed because there were scuff marks and a streak of blood along the benches where he had fought back. The man had stuffed him into a locker and locked it from the outside before running for his van. If I had arrived 30 seconds earlier, I would have met him in that hallway. I have replayed those 30 seconds for years. A week later, a patrol unit spotted the white van in a 7-Eleven parking lot 10 miles away. The suspect was sitting inside, eating from a plastic cup of noodles, as if he had simply stopped for dinner. The knife was still in the glove compartment. The boy's blood was on the handle. When we cuffed him, he looked ordinary, middle-aged, thinning hair, calm eyes. That calm scared me more than anything. We got the confession eventually. He had been following the school for weeks, watching the routines, waiting for a stormy day when fewer people lingered outside. He picked the back door because it had no camera. He didn't come for a ransom, didn't even seem to know why he'd done it. I just wanted to see if I could, he said. Those 5 words hollowed me out. Now, years later, I still dream of that locker room. In the dream, the lockers breathe like lungs, expanding and contracting, metal sighs that carry a boy's voice whispering from inside. Every time the thunder rolls, I feel the weight of that missed license plate pressing into me again. The van was caught, the men imprisoned, but the feeling that evil could stroll into a school and almost leave with a child, that part never fades. I retired with a chest full of citations and still think of that day as the one that defined my career, not for the rescue, but for the moment. I learned how easily the line between order and chaos can disappear behind a door left slightly open. The Hampton Inn was one of those new ones that look identical in every town, red brick, polite lighting, and a lobby that smells faintly of coffee and lemon cleanser. I checked in alone that evening, a single overnight before visiting Rowan University for a campus tour. My parents had planned to come, but life interfered, so they sent me off with a backpack, a duffel, and a nervous list of reminders. By the time I finished dinner at a nearby diner, the parking lot lights had come on, casting clean white circles across the asphalt. It felt safe in the bland way chain hotels are meant to feel. My room was on the 4th floor, facing the back of the property where a small patch of woods pressed against the lot. Inside, everything was textbook hotel design, beige wallpaper, heavy curtains, a king bed that looked untouched by human life. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and turned on the television for background noise. The digital clock read 8:04 p.m. When I started brushing my teeth, already thinking about tomorrow's tour. At first, the alarm didn't register as danger. It began as a thin electronic whine, followed by a mechanical voice repeating a line that felt almost absurd. "Attention all Hampton Inn guests, please remain in your rooms. This property is on lockdown." The phrase looped between bursts of static. A white light on the ceiling started pulsing like lightning. I stood in the bathroom doorway with toothpaste still foaming in my mouth, staring up at the flashing beacon. Lockdown in a hotel? It seemed impossible. I'd heard of fire alarms, tornado drills, even evacuations for gas leaks, but never a lockdown. The noise was irritating more than frightening, a novelty that made me grin at the absurdity. I rinsed my mouth, walked to the window, and peeked through the curtain. The parking lot glowed under halogen lights, empty except for a few parked cars. No sirens, no commotion. If this was an emergency, it was a quiet one. After a few minutes, the voice stopped, but the strobe continued. Every few seconds, the light flared white across the room, then vanished, like a heartbeat made of electricity. I assumed someone had tripped the system, maybe a drill gone wrong. I muted the television, climbed onto the bed, and tried to lose myself in the monotony of late-night programming. The blinking light felt like an uninvited guest, though, so I buried my face in the pillow. The hotel phone rang at exactly 9:41. The sound was shrill enough to jolt me upright. I expected a recording about the alarm, some reassurance that everything was fine. Instead, a woman's voice greeted me, calm but tight. "Sir, this is the front desk. I need you to remain calm and walk out of your room immediately." The phrasing felt off. "Why?" I asked, my throat dry. She exhaled audibly before answering. "There's someone in your room. Please don't speak. Just go." The receiver slipped against my hand. For a second, my brain refused the information, like a computer rejecting corrupted data. Someone in my room? The door had been locked. I looked around, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The television flickered in the corner. The curtains stirred slightly, just a tremor of air conditioning. "Hello?" I whispered into the back phone, but the line had gone dead. Every instinct screamed to leave, yet curiosity welded me in place. I checked under the bed, first empty. I pulled open the bathroom door, nothing but my reflection staring back, pale and wide-eyed. The flashing ceiling light gave everything a surreal rhythm. Bright, dark, bright, dark. I was breathing in sync with the flashes. Then my eyes caught movement near the closet. It was one of those wooden sliding doors with a small handle carved into it. The door was open just a crack, enough for a sliver of darkness to show between the panels. In that narrow gap, something pale reflected the light. A shape curved like a cheekbone, an eye, unmoving but unmistakably human. For one suspended moment, the image made no sense, like my brain couldn't process that a face could exist there. Then the door slid shut, soundless but deliberate. The next flash of light revealed only smooth wood. I didn't wait for another. I ran. The bolt clicked as I twisted it, the door flung open, and the hallway stretched out ahead, empty and humming with fluorescent light. My bare feet slapped the carpet as I sprinted to the elevator, then changed my mind and bolted for the stairwell instead. The echo of my own movement chased me down the steps. When I reached the lobby, 2 uniformed employees stood near the front desk, both pale, both holding phones. One of them saw me and waved me over with urgent relief. "You're the guest from 412? She asked. I nodded, trying to find words. She motioned toward a security monitor on the counter. The grainy black and white feed showed the hallway of my floor an hour earlier. A man in dark clothes walked slowly past the camera, stopping at each door to glance at the numbers. When he reached mine, he pulled something from his pocket, looked like a card key, and swiped it. The door opened. He stepped inside, closing it behind him. I asked the question that barely fit in my mouth. "He was in there the whole time?" She nodded. "We think he slipped in while you were out and waited." The footage rewound to show the same man wandering the halls earlier that evening, his posture calm, almost professional. I realized with cold clarity that he could have watched me for hours from inside that closet, maybe while I changed, maybe while I brushed my teeth. My skin crawled as if his gaze was still crawling over it. The police arrived minutes later, their radios crackling. They went upstairs while the staff kept me near the desk. The lobby's normalcy, the vending machines, the potted plants made the situation feel like a nightmare forced into daylight. I kept expecting someone to laugh, to tell me it was a prank, but then the elevator doors opened and 2 officers stepped out with a man between them in cuffs. He was shorter than I'd imagined, maybe in his 40s, hair thinning and unwashed. His wrists glinted with metal as they led him through the lobby. He turned his head just enough to find me with his eyes. The look wasn't anger or shame. It was recognition, like he knew me, like the game had simply ended early. They said he had several stolen keycards, likely taken from a housekeeping cart. He'd been prowling hotels across the county, slipping into rooms when guests stepped out. Sometimes he stole, sometimes he just watched. The thought of that, of him standing in the dark inches from where I slept, felt worse than any theft. Back in my room, after the officers cleared it, the air felt poisoned by his presence. The closet door stood open, the space behind it shallow, ordinary. I couldn't understand how something so small could hold so much fear. The flashing ceiling light had finally gone dark, leaving a faint smell of burnt circuitry. I packed my bag without turning my back to the closet and checked out before sunrise. In the following days, I learned from police reports that the man had been staying at another motel nearby under a fake name. He had maps of local universities, lists of events, places where students might travel alone. They never determined exactly what he intended to do that night, and maybe that's what makes it worse. Imagination fills the gaps more cruelly than facts. Even now, years later, hotel rooms still make me uneasy. I wedge chairs under doorknobs. I check closets twice. When the air conditioner hums, I listen to it like a heartbeat, counting the seconds between sounds. People think of fear as something loud, a scream, a bang, a chase, but real fear is quiet. It sits in the corner, waits, and sometimes, if you're unlucky, it shares a room with you. Lockdown is a word we're taught to associate with safety. It means control, containment, the sealing of doors to keep chaos outside. Yet, in these stories, lockdown became something else entirely. A stage where safety cracked and the monsters walked in. A school basement that was supposed to protect its students became a trap with no intercom, no warning. A veteran officer learned that a simple delay 30 seconds, a forgotten license plate, can define the line between rescue and tragedy. A college visitor discovered that even the anonymity of a hotel room can hide an intruder waiting in silence. What threads through all of them is the illusion of control. We build walls, rules, procedures, and alarms, believing that structure itself is safety, but fear has a way of finding the seams. The two boys in the basement survived, not because they were calm, but because they listened to instinct. The officer saved a child because he followed sound instead of protocol, and the hotel guest escaped because a stranger's warning voice pierced through disbelief before reason could silence it. If you ever find yourself in a lockdown, the advice seems simple. Stay quiet, stay hidden, stay put. Yet, real survival often demands more situational awareness, trust in your gut, the courage to act when your mind is frozen between logic and terror. Lock the door, turn off the lights, silence your phone. Listen. Fear sharpens the senses. It tells you when footsteps are too close or when silence has grown unnatural. After the threat passes, remember that survival doesn't end with escape. The aftermath lingers. The body remembers even when the mind tries to forget. The tremor in your hands, the echo of breathing in a dark room, the habit of checking locks twice, these are the ghosts lockdowns leave behind, and that's all right. Those small rituals are how we tell the world, I am still here. What each story truly teaches is that evil rarely arrives as a storm. It slips in quietly through doors we assume are secure. It wears a teacher's silhouette, a harmless white van, a hotel uniform. Lockdown drills and procedures save lives, but awareness real, human vigilance is the thing that keeps fear from turning fatal. So when the alarm sounds or the hallway lights go dark, remember, the rules are the framework, not the guarantee. Your heartbeat, your instincts, and your will to survive are what finish the job. Stay low, stay silent. And when the door finally opens again and daylight floods in, take a moment to breathe, to feel the air that was once a stranger. You made it through the night. You learned that safety is not a place, it's an action. This is Midnight Hauntings. And in every story of terror, there's always one truth worth remembering. Sometimes, the only way out is to listen to the fear that's been trying to save you all along.